Good morning, everyone. Looks like the chat is pretty active right now, so that must mean everyone is dialing in right now. I just want to do a quick sound check. Can everyone hear me okay? Lovely, thank you. We're just going to give about 5 more minutes before we begin, just to make sure everyone's in here. If you can't see the screen right now, just go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, just so we can take attendance, because with YouTube, it doesn't really give us a good sense of who's there based on what username you've chosen for the chat. So just in the chat room, if you could just say, your name and what school you're from, that would be great as far as attendance goes. I just realized this slide, managing classrooms iPad. That is horrible. Let's fix that. I know you teachers are really particular about grammar. Managing classroom iPads. There we go. All right, we're going to kick this off in about 2 more minutes. Thank you guys for identifying yourself in the chat. All right, 9:30 on the button. Let's kick this show off. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending this webinar hosted here. We're going to be covering managing classroom iPads using our new mandatory mobile device management product, AirWatch. So just before we begin, just by a show of in the chat room, how many people here have a rough idea, have heard of AirWatch, or maybe perhaps are already using it? If you're already using it, just say that we're already using it. If you've heard of it and would like to know more, um, go ahead and put that in the chat as well. I want to get a feel for it because when we were looking at the attendance, we saw that some schools had about like 2 iPads already enrolled in AirWatch, but then there were some schools that had 40. So I just want to make sure I want to see where everyone's at here with AirWatch and their understanding of how we're going to be managing these mobile devices going forward. So the general consensus I think is that most people have just heard of it and they're kind of being forced into it. So okay, yeah, heard of it, heard of it. Okay, has anyone here actually used it or has played around with it? Okay, somebody just put their school on the list of AirWatch deployment. Just got our iPads, so we just heard of it. Okay, good stuff, good stuff. All right, and no one's heard of it. Okay. All right, that's good. So yeah, I just didn't want anyone here who was like a guru, because I just want to keep the expectations that right now we're just introducing it. So just to give you guys an idea of what it is, what are the benefits, planning for it because it is going to be mandatory. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to show you the different options of how we're going to get started with the AirWatch deployment, which will all make sense hopefully by the end of this. Looks like somebody in the chat here, Dimo, sorry if I mispronounced your name, they already have their school on the list for AirWatch deployment. So I'm going to cover the 2 different deployment options during the webinar. So without further ado, my name is Brandon, and over to the left of me, not that it matters to you guys because you can't see him, I have my colleague Felipe, who is going to be fielding the chat for any questions that he may be able to answer that are kind of quick and just sort of my administrative person here, my left-hand man. I appreciate it. Thank you. He's just kind of going to be filling the chat, making sure everything gets answered, and I don't skip over anything because sometimes the chat can go by really quickly. My name is Brandon. We are both at the client service desk or the help desk, and we are offering this webinar just sort of to give schools a better understanding of how this product works and how this is going to look like going forward as far as iPads go. And the product is called AirWatch. So before we begin, I just want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, which means by the end of this webinar, you will actually be able to use the same YouTube link that you're using right now to go back and watch it or skip backwards if you missed something or anything to that effect. Also, there's about a 10-second delay between the moment I'm saying something and the moment you guys actually hear it on your end, just due to network latency. So if you ask a question in the chat and I don't jump on it right away, it's probably just that 10-second delay that I may have missed it, but I will try to address questions as I see them pop up. And of course, do feel free to ask questions in the chat. If there are questions that require more detailed response, we'll hold that to the end of the webinar just for time constraints. But I don't imagine that there will be any too much that requires too much detail because I intend on covering all that. So feel free to ask whatever it is that comes to your mind in the chat, and we will go over your questions or concerns at that moment. Also, just the functionality of YouTube, if you're not aware, in the bottom right-hand corner of the video player, you'll see that there is a gear icon that you can kind of click on to adjust the quality. If you find that the quality is too low, you can increase it to something higher like 1080p or 720p. Just if you can't read something on the screen or something's not abundantly clear, then you can just you could increase the quality, but of course that will come at a cost of network speed. So just one thing to be cognizant of. The second thing also is that next to the volume control on the media player, you'll see that there is a live button. If you see that next to live is gray, it means that the video has actually kind of fallen back or out of sync rather. So what you want to do is if you click the actual wording that says live, it'll bring you to the quote-unquote live as possible version of this webinar. So you'll be as live as possible, just as far as answering questions go. So, with AirWatch, what is it? So AirWatch, in a nutshell, I like how I'm going to say in a nutshell, and then is a mobile device management system slash enterprise mobility management system. Those are two interchangeable yet fancy terms for basically a central where all our iPads will converge and communicate with an administration system. So basically, we will from AirWatch be able to deploy different settings to the iPads, different configurations to the iPads, and in the case of you guys at the school level, you'll be deploying apps to your iPads, and you can get really granular with it. So those are and sorry, I'm going to cover the benefits. The benefits of the AirWatch mobile device management system is that it has automatic TDSB wireless network access to the WLAN TDSB 01. So prior to AirWatch, what we had to do with the iPads is join them onto TDSB Wi-Fi, TDSB staff and student, which is what it was before TDSB Wi-Fi. If you're not aware of how those two wireless networks work, basically you would join them and it would ask you for either your employee number and password or a student number and password. And that was all fine and dandy, but our username and passwords expire, which would cause problems because, if your password expired, then you would have to kick it off the network, rejoin it using a new username and password, which wasn't good given that these classroom iPads need to stay connected at all times. And the second thing is that if you're signing in with your employee number and password, are you therefore held accountable for everything that goes on that iPad going forward? So with AirWatch, they're now all automatically joined to the WLAN TDSB 01 wireless network. So they should remain connected to that network as well. So you shouldn't have to mess around in the settings for the Wi-Fi with these iPads that are in AirWatch. There's also easy app installation for multiple iPads. So from a centralized point within the AirWatch console, you can actually deploy a bunch of apps to all your iPads. And I'll show that as the webinar progresses, an iPad that will join the AirWatch environment, and you will see that right away it's going to get a whole suite of apps. So it kind of makes it very streamlined. If you need to wipe an iPad or you get new iPads in, they will automatically come in and they'll get all the previous apps that you've decided you want to appear on your iPad. So there's also, because of this centralized deployment of the apps, there's no longer a need for an Apple ID. If you guys have used iPads in the past and they're in an unmanaged state without AirWatch, you would have to basically, let's say you wanted to get an app, you would go to the App Store, search up the app, and then when you go to hit download, it asks you to sign in with an Apple ID. With AirWatch, we do not need the Apple ID. It deploys it centrally. So it comes from AirWatch and it pushes it over to the iPad. So you don't got to sign in on each one. Remember those Apple ID credentials. And sometimes what would happen is somebody would change the Apple ID password and then not communicate that to the school, causing a lot of back and forth about what is the the Apple ID password. And sometimes it would prompt you on the iPad, hey, what's the Apple ID password? And it would be really confusing for somebody looking at the iPad. Why is this iPad asking me for this Apple ID password? I have no idea. So that will no longer be the case with your iPads once they're enrolled in AirWatch. There's also a consistent experience between the iPads. So similar to like how our computers all have the same TDSB background. Actually recently we have this new 20th anniversary TDSB logo. Our iPads are going to look basically the same. We're going to kind of make them all look identical to each other. So the same look and feel amongst the TDSB iPads. So you should be able to pick one up and immediately know that it's a TDSB iPad. So for example, this one right here, I wonder if the brightness is causing a problem here. Hang on. Can you guys see that? Let me just get that in frame. There we go. Okay. So here's an example of a TDSB iPad. As you can see at the lock screen, it's got the TDSB logo and the blue background for the backdrop. So consistent look and feel amongst the iPads. So if you have some iPads already in your environment, you may notice that they already look like this. If you have an iPad that has this blue background and the TDSB logo at the lock screen, that iPad's actually an AirWatch. So let me go back to the slides here. So they do have a consistent look and feel between the iPads. They're actually also built-in security policies, which prevent students from adding and removing apps, applying passcodes to the device, and locking the device. So a big problem prior to AirWatch was that a student could pick up an iPad and go into the App Store and download any app they want. I actually have a non-AirWatch iPad here with me. So here's one that's not an AirWatch. One of the first things that make that uh, pretty evident is the background. It does not have that blue background, and the lock screen does not have that TDSB logo. So this iPad is actually not enrolled in AirWatch. It's not being managed by AirWatch. And a lot of times, what would happen is, when you have an iPad that's not managed and there's no security policies in place, basically students could do whatever they want to. The App Store is available. They could go into the App Store and start searching and downloading whatever apps that they want. And that could cause some distractions if those are on the iPads. But another thing that was happening is students would actually come in here and then they would go to the passcode setting on the device. They would turn on a passcode, create one, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll say use anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the student would put a passcode on the device, just like this, and then you would pick it up and you would see that you're presented to type in your passcode, and you wouldn't have any idea what the student set it to. And in this case, with all the locking technologies and encryption technologies that Apple's put into the device, there really is no option from here but to wipe the device and start from factory settings, because we cannot get past this passcode screen. On the AirWatch iPad, students will not be able to do that, and I will show you that in when we get to that. And one of the other benefits of this is also that you get a level of inventory for your iPads. So you can actually see a list of all the iPads that you have in your school. You'll see the serial numbers, the model numbers. You'll get and you can sort of have a running list of all your iPads at the school. There's also some other features I didn't even put in here, but you can track the iPads as far as location goes. You can lock them down. Hopefully I'll have some time to show you guys all the different things that you can do within AirWatch. But just to be clear that with this particular webinar, I don't want you guys to walk away with this, being, you're not going to be a guru at this right away. This is more to get you guys started. There is an afternoon session where we go into a little bit more detail, and also, if you're not going to that afternoon session, that's fine as well, because when we get to the part where I talk about the different ways that your school gets started in AirWatch, we actually set you guys up with a webinar just like we're doing here that kind of walks you through how to go about using AirWatch in greater detail. But for now, I want to sell it to you. I wanted you guys to see why this is something that you guys should look forward to. So who can log in to AirWatch? At this moment, principals can log into AirWatch by default. AirWatch administrators, which your principal designates. So the principal can actually go into LAS and add you or any TDSB staff member at their school to the AirWatch web console. So they'll be able to administer the iPads. It can take about 12 to 24 hours for that access to take effect. But that is something that your principal can do, and we do provide instructions to your principal on how to get you guys added in if you express interest in wanting to manage the iPads using AirWatch. I'm actually not going to go over that, the demo there. But one thing I want to show you is the difference between an AirWatch iPad and the non-TDSB iPad. So as I already showed you, so here's our non-AirWatch iPad. Like I said, it doesn't have that blue background or the TDSB logo. I foolishly put a passcode on here. Just get rid of that. There we go. So as you can see, the App Store is available. I can go in there now. Pretend that I'm a student. I could go in there and start downloading apps. All the settings are completely open. You can basically plug in an Apple ID. You can set up a mail profile. You can put a passcode on the device, which I already have done. These are all things that are not that we won't be using with the that we won't be students will not be able to do rather on the AirWatch iPads. Sorry, I'm just going to turn off this passcode here. So I'll show you this one over here is a AirWatch iPad, and right away the TDSB logo on the back screen. The App Store is actually still there, but that's because I am signed into the agent. So I'll explain that in just a second. Let me just sign out of here one sec. So with the AirWatch iPads, you can actually unlock all the restrictions on the device by signing in and out of the agent iPad. This one is not doing it now. What the heck? Sorry guys, bear with me. I think I picked up the wrong iPad. That's weird. No, it's just so on the iPads, it's not supposed to show the App Store until you sign in to the AirWatch agent, which I guess I could show you, but I don't want to jump too far ahead of myself here. Okay. So yeah, there's the App Store. Let me just sign out of here. Should trigger that thing off. Log out. Yes. Boom. Still there. I should have wiped and enrolled this thing before we got in here. Okay, actually, before we get into actually showing you all the features of the iPad, I'm going to put one into AirWatch with you guys. So first and foremost, how do we get started with AirWatch as far as getting this rolling at your school? Right now, we are offering two options for having the iPads enrolled into AirWatch. One is the self-enrollment, which basically will say that you guys can round up all your iPads and wipe them and put them into AirWatch, which I'll show you. And the second option is IT assisted enrollment. And basically the difference between these two enrollment options is one is we send out a team of field services to go on site. They will send your principal an email prior to going on site requesting that you round up all the iPads into one room. They will go on site and they will just systematically pick them up and wipe them. And that is really all there is to it as far as getting the iPads into AirWatch is you wipe them. As of, I believe, November 2016, maybe later, any iPad that you get brand new, so if you purchase it from the TDSB tech catalog, or if you have an iPad that you had prior to, we'll say 2016, if you wipe that iPad, it will automatically go into AirWatch through a process that's known as DEP, which basically means when that device is wiped and it comes back to life and you see that setup screen, what you're going to see is that it's going to ask you to enroll the device. So I'm just going to show you the actual process that we would go through. So like I said, there's two options. There's IT Assist and there's self-enrollment. So if I were going to choose the self-enrollment option, so say I only have about like 10 or 20 iPads in my school and I want to get going in AirWatch right away, you can actually start your enrollment whenever you guys, well, I guess, sorry, you have to let us know first that you're going to be doing self-enrollment, but you can basically start the enrollment simply by wiping the device. Of course, if you have anything on the device that you want to back up, I would back it up before you wipe the device. So if you have a bunch of photos on the device, you can actually use the Google Drive app if you have it installed on your iPad to back up your data on that iPad. So we would recommend if there's like photos on there or videos on there on that iPad and you want to make a copy of it before you wipe it, because when you wipe it, everything on it's gone. You can sign in with your Google Drive account and back up all your stuff. So I'll actually just walk through that right now. So let's say I'm going to wipe this iPad, because this iPad right now, as you can see, is not an AirWatch. It doesn't have the TDSB blue background. So I'm just going to walk you through as if, for example, I were going to wipe this iPad. I'm going to take this out of screen so I don't type in my password, as I've done many times before. Okay. So I've logged into AW, and I should now be signed into the Google Drive app on this iPad. So let's say I had a photo on here that I want to back up before I wipe this iPad to put in AirWatch. Let's get a photo on there. Let me just, there, just so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Boom. Okay, so I have a photo on this iPad. I'm going to wipe it. I want to put this thing in AirWatch, but I want to make sure that I get those photos backed up. So first I launched Google Drive, right? I had already signed into Google Drive, and now that I'm signed in, I can put that photo on my Google Drive. So what I'll do is I'll go into my photos here, and I'll find that photo that I want. Here's the one that I've just taken. And what I can do is there's a little square button. I don't know if you guys can see it. Maybe it's not bright enough on the screen here. Little square export button up here at the top. Oh, the white balance isn't kicking in. Come on. Aha, there it is. All right. With that photo checked off, I can then now actually upload this to Google Drive using the More option down here at the bottom. And it will show me all the different apps that I can export this with. And I can see that Google Drive is listed there as an activity, but it's turned off. So if I toggle that on, I can now actually upload my photos to Google Drive. So now I see that the Google Drive button is available there to use. So I can actually take all the photos off this iPad by swiping through them, tapping them, see that they get a little blue little check mark down there, and then upload them to my Google Drive. Now, the reason we use Google Drive is because obviously here at the TDSB, we're very Google-centric now, but also we have unlimited space with Google Drive. So if I want to back up a bunch of photos that are on my iPad, Google Drive is the perfect solution for that. So right now I have all my photos here that I want to back up that are checked off, and I can go to my Drive button down here. It's going to give me the option to upload those. And once I upload them, assuming I have a network connection in this room. Oh, geez. Yeah. Preparing. Oh, come on. Sorry, let me just gonna quickly, oops, not that. I want to make sure I actually have an internet connection. Just gonna go to Google. Okay, so I'm connected to the internet. Let me try that again. Drive. Ah, there we go. So this is the screen that I want to see. It's basically going to show me that those are the photos that I have selected and that we're going to upload them to my Google Drive. So I just tap this upload button up here in the top right hand corner. The loading bars are going to appear and all those photos are going to upload to my Google Drive to back them up. So once I've selected all my photos, and you can do the same thing with videos and really all the content on here, you can upload them up to Google Drive before you wipe it. And that's what I would recommend doing if you're worried about losing anything before you wipe it. Because in order to put these things in AirWatch, we're going to have to wipe this iPad. Well, I'm not really worried about losing these photos, so I don't have to wait for them to upload, but I imagine you would want to wait for all those loading bars to finish here. But that's the idea, is that before you wipe your iPads, if you have anything that you do want on them, please upload them to Google Drive before you wipe it. So now I want to put this iPad into AirWatch. How do I do this? So this would be an iPad that I've had prior to AirWatch. So in this case, I have to wipe it. Now, if you're buying new iPads, or you just got a whole new set of iPads in, you're going to actually be forced to put them into AirWatch when we go through the initial setup, which I'll show in just a second. But for the sake of this example, I'm just going to pretend that this is an iPad that I've had prior to AirWatch being a thing for me at my school. So how we would wipe the iPad is simply you just go into Settings, and then General, and then we scroll down to the bottom, and there's this little button there that says Reset, and Erase All Contents and Settings. So there's a bunch of different reset options in here. The one that we want to use is Erase All Contents and Settings, and that will completely factory wipe the iPad back to its vanilla state. So I'll do that now because I don't really too concerned. And it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to erase it? Sure do. Oh, actually, that's actually good. So it's prompting me to, hey, by the way, you're signed in with an Apple ID. You got to sign out of this Apple ID before you continue. And this is true. So I should have mentioned that. If you have an Apple ID that's signed in on the iPad, you will want to sign out of that Apple ID prior to wiping it. In fact, it'll ask you to sign out before you wipe it. And the reason for that is that when you sign in with an Apple ID on an iPad, by default what it does is it turns on this feature called Find My iPad, which basically means that that iPad is bound to that Apple ID. so that if somebody, for example, took that iPad and stole it from me, because I'm signed in with that Apple ID, I can actually track down that iPad. That's just like a default behavior of Apple's Apple IDs. They turn on this feature called Find My iPad. So you'll want to sign out. Now, you need to type in the password to sign out, which, if you know what that is, great. But sometimes what happens is if you've had this iPad for a few years and you come across this and you go to sign out and you see an Apple ID that doesn't make sense to you. In this case, see if I can get that in focus. Is there a focus button on here? Zoom? Should I be using the zoom instead of that? No, that's not helping at all. Sorry. This document camera is no bueno. But basically, the Apple ID, it's kind of fuzzy, but it ends in at tdsb.on.ca, which is good because that means that it's an Apple ID that's controlled by the TDSB. And if I don't know the password well, you can contact the client service desk and they can figure it out. We can reset that Apple ID password. But if, for example, you see an Apple ID in there that's not ending in at tdsb.on.ca, that means that that Apple ID has belonged to somebody else. So it could be like a staff member or even sometimes a student. In those cases, if there's an Apple ID that's signed in that belongs to a student or a staff member and you don't know the password and you can't sign out, you're going to have to contact us at the client service desk because essentially what we need to do to get that to sign out is prove to Apple that we own that iPad. So it becomes a little bit of an ordeal. Unfortunately, Apple has created all these great security features for keeping that iPad safe and belonging to you and trackable to you. But when you have it in a shared environment like this, where the iPad's constantly changing hands, this is where this problem comes in. So if you sign in with your Apple ID, effectively what happens is, Apple suddenly thinks you own that Apple ID. So when you go to sign out, you do need to type in the password, as you can see here. And if you don't know that password or you don't recognize the Apple ID that's there, then basically you're gonna have to log a ticket with us so that we can get the process rolling to get that iPad recovered. Because Apple will actually need to manually take that iPad off the iCloud account that's got that turned on. So that's my spiel about that. But yeah, so hopefully you don't run into that too much. But if you do sign out and you see that it ends in at tdsb.on.ca, more than likely it'll be the Apple ID that your school uses. So all the Apple IDs at the school will be number dash mobile G at tdsb.on.ca. And that's the Apple IDs that we gave you guys prior to AirWatch. And we can always reset that password. So if it's signed in with that, not a problem. If it's even signed in with, like, let's say first name dot last name at tdsb.on.ca, that's not a problem either because we can reset that too as well. But in this case, I know the password for this one, so I'm going to go ahead and sign out. Wait, do I know the password? Yes, I do. Okay, so signing out of this Apple ID, and boom. So now the iPad is wiping. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually putting this device in AirWatch right now. Basically, this is how you would wipe all your iPads. You would gather them up in a room, take a stack of 1, 2, 3, however many iPads you got, and you basically make sure there's no data on there that you want. If there is data on there that you want, sign in with your onto Google Drive, upload all your stuff that you want to keep to Google Drive. Then sign out of your Apple ID on that iPad if there is one that is signed in. Then wipe the device. And when this device comes back to life, I'm not going to wait for that. It's going to take too long. I actually have one here that's already wiped. When your device comes back to life, what you should be greeted with is this hello screen. And this is the initial iPad setup screen that you'll see. And basically, the setup here is pretty non-trivial as far as getting through it. It's like default questions like choose your language, English, country, Canada. It'll ask you for the Wi-Fi. At this moment, what's it doing? Setting the language. Okay, sorry. So we're gonna let's see, quick start. If you have an iPad running up, we're gonna set it up manually. Okay, we're gonna choose our Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi will be, in this case, I'm going to use TDSB media devices. You guys should be able to use TDSB media devices with your iPads. However, if you do attempt to join TDSB media devices and it does not work, then please use TDSB-Wi-Fi. Now with TDSB-Wi-Fi, it will ask you for your employee number and password. As you can see, I chose media devices, and it didn't ask me for an employee number and password. So that the idea of TDSB media devices is it's actually like a manually controlled list. So we have basically taken a list of all the iPads that we own and we plug them into TDSB media devices. Now some of them may have gotten missed, or some of them may have erroneously been taken off that list. In which case you can always use TDSB-Wi-Fi as a fallback. Um, so yeah, once it's connected to the Wi-Fi, the next screen you'll see is remote management. This is the first sign that this iPad will actually be going into AirWatch. So leave that one as is, okay, because I want to show the difference. So this one will say remote management, and when I click next, here's a screen that you would not see on a consumer device that you're going to see with our iPads. And it says here that remote management, school iPads, enter your Trillium ID, department iPads / iPhones, contact the client service desk. So this iPad has been forced to join into AirWatch. And this basically right now it's asking for a username and password, and based on what we put in here is where it decides that it goes within AirWatch. What we've done for all the schools is your school has a 4-digit Trillium number. That I'm hoping you guys are aware of. But basically, let's say you wanted to add a printer on your computer. Your printer numbers always start with the 4-digit Trillium number. So 1234 dash, class 056 would be like an example of a printer, right? So those 4 numbers should be known to really anyone in the main office if you're not aware of what it is. But that 4-digit Trillium number is the 4 numbers that kind of virtually uniquely identifies your school. So when you get to this screen here where it asks you for the username and password, all we need to do is type in the 4-digit Trillium number for both the username and the password. And that will tell us that this iPad belongs to your school. And that will direct this iPad to appear in AirWatch for your school. So for me, I don't have a school, so I'm just going to put in our fictitious school, which is basically 9999 for both the username. So I type in 9999 for the username. And then for the password, we're going to do the same thing, just 9999, 9999, boom. And by putting in 9999 for both username and password, basically what we're telling this iPad is you're going to go into that particular school's AirWatch environment. And when I hit next, it will start to join the AirWatch environment. Got some more Apple jargon here. Access the dock from anywhere. Continue. Switch between recent apps. Continue. Welcome to the iPad. So now this iPad is officially set up. Now, as you can see right away, it's still got the beach background. The App Store disappeared. I don't know if you saw that, but it happened really quickly. The App Store vanished. What's going to happen is right now it's pulling in all the configurations from the AirWatch Central Server. I'm actually going to leave it on here so you guys can see it as it kind of takes effect. So what should happen is that boom, the background goes blue. So now it's actually gotten the configuration for the background to be blue. You may see some prompts. It says to rearrange icons, yada, yada, yada. I'll just dismiss that. But now what's happening is it's automatically pulling in all these different apps. Now, because I had my AirWatch environment set up that any new iPad that I put in here, I want them to have Google Chrome. I want them to have Google Classroom. I want them to have Google Docs. What's going to happen is slowly this iPad's going to get all those configurations. Right now, it really is all network dependent. So the agent just got deployed, which is the sort of brains that makes this iPad talk to AirWatch. That got deployed, but depending on your network connection, what'll happen is it may take some time for those apps to come in and for it to get those different apps that we have deployed for AirWatch. But as you can see, some of the restrictions have already kicked in as the App Store is now gone. There's no App Store here and there's no App Store here. So already this thing is for a student wouldn't be able to put any apps on here. If I go into settings, that passcode option that used to be there on the left hand side is now gone. I can't sign in with an Apple ID, which is good because as you saw earlier that when you sign in with the Apple ID, you actually you basically bind that iPad to that Apple ID. And same thing with the iCloud up here at the top. I can't tap that; it's completely grayed out, which would actually bind it to the to that Apple ID, which we don't want. So right now, this iPad is pretty locked down. So you can imagine that this would be much more effective in the classroom as far as keeping students from, polluting it with bad apps or, getting distracted by putting apps that you didn't want on there. Um, so that what we've just done here actually is the step of enrollment. So as I said, we're offering two ways for your school to get started into AirWatch, and one is IT assisted, where basically we send field services on site. They'll gather up all your iPads in one room, and they'll do what we just did right now, and that's basically wipe all your iPads and type in that four-digit trillium number 9999 in my case, um, to put it in the AirWatch environment. The problem with that, though, is because this is a board-wide project and it has to take place across, over 500 schools. The time constraints as far as getting field services out there can be a while. So, just honestly speaking, it can take upwards of even a month. That's actually at sometimes a month and a half even for field service to go on site. Sorry, I don't know if you can see actually there. So there are those apps that are installing right there. I haven't done anything with this iPad. I've basically left it alone, and it's pulling in those apps that I set by default. Sorry to just divert from that while I'm talking about, but that just wanted to so you can see that it's pulling in those apps now. But as I said, if you choose the field services option for them to come on site and do what I've done here, um, it could take upwards of a month. But what you can do is you guys can choose self-enrollment, where you basically can do it yourself. So what I just did here was the act of putting this device in AirWatch. Of course, we're not saying you have to do one thing or the other. It's all entirely up to you. If it takes too much time, then by all means, choose your field services option. How come when I try to view this from my iPad, I don't get the chat screen? I think I'm signing to YouTube. Oh, you're actually trying to watch this webinar from the iPad? I think from the iPad there's like a YouTube app. I don't know if YouTube will actually launch in the browser, but yeah, I can imagine that the chat wouldn't work on the mobile platform of YouTube. I've never tried that, to be honest. Um, what's that? I've never tried that either. I'm actually kind of curious. Um, yeah, so I guess if you're viewing this from the actual iPad, heck, let's check it out. YouTube. YouTube.com. What's our channel called? CSD YouTube? CSD? CSD? Is that it? Just CSD? TDSB CSD. TDSB CSD. Uh-huh. Okay. Let's watch. Let's go into the matrix here. Getting started. Oh, live now. Okay. Look at that. I'm watching my own webinar from the iPad. This is we're gonna get a tunnel going on here. Crazy. Yeah, I don't think yeah, there's no chat. Oh, great, I can hear myself. Let me turn that lower. Get out of here. Yeah, I think the mobile chat feature doesn't work within the browser on these iPads. So if you're watching this from, yeah, I don't see it. If you're watching this from the actual, from your iPad, you may not see the actual chat feature. Mind you, there's a YouTube app, so maybe that's something that works in the YouTube app. But I'd probably use this on a desktop or even a Mac to view this webinar. But getting back to the deployment options, as I said, there's IT assisted and self-enrollment. So the choice is up to you guys. Depending on what you want, all you have to do is contact us at the client service desk and say how it is that you want to go about deploying AirWatch in your environment. If you guys have the time, then self-enrollment would be the fastest option you can get going on it right away. Basically, you do what I've done here, which was wipe the device and put it in AirWatch using that school trillium number. If you choose to do the IT assist option, it can take upwards of a month. So play around with it. I mean, maybe you can even do like a half and half. I actually seen that when we were looking at the attendance list that actually I believe most of the people here have already one or two iPads in their AirWatch environment. Now, not a lot, but definitely one or two iPads were showing up in your school's environment, which means you may have called us already and asked, when you got your new iPad, what to do on that setup screen, and we walked you through how to put it in AirWatch. So it's pretty straightforward. It's basically, you get to that setup screen, and then it will ask you for an employee number and password. So now that this iPad is an AirWatch, as I showed you, there is the App Store that's gone and the settings that were all now completely locked down. A student, can't muck around on here too much. Um, but one thing that I want to show you is that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing for you to look at this iPad and notice that these restrictions are actually getting in your way. Maybe there's something you want to do. Maybe you want to sign into the App Store and test an app before you get it going in AirWatch. You can do that by signing into the AirWatch agent. So even though this is locked down for students, any TDSB staff member can pick up this iPad and completely unlock all the restrictions that are in place with this iPad. Actually, let me just show you what all the restrictions are. If I go in here, you don't need to really worry about too much about how I'm getting here, but it'll actually show all the different restrictions here. So there's 34 restrictions on this iPad now that it's an AirWatch. So if I look at those, it says news not allowed, autofill in Safari not allowed, Game Center all not allowed, iCloud not allowed. So there's a whole list of the restrictions that are put on this iPad just by being an AirWatch. But you as a TDSB staff member can unlock all those restrictions whenever it is that you want. And we're going to do that by using the Agent app here. So there's an there's an app on the iPads that are enrolled in AirWatch with a blue shield. That is the Agent app. And that app, if you launch it, it's going to ask you to sign in with a username and password. Any TDSB staff member can put in their employee number and password here, and it will effectively unlock and take away all the restrictions on the device. So if you have an iPad now that's in AirWatch, and because you guys all had said at the beginning of this chat, none of you had heard of AirWatch, or you've heard of it, but you didn't really know too much about it. I'm under the impression that you guys probably do actually have a few of these AirWatch iPads in your school, and you may have noticed, what the heck is going on? There's no app store. I can't do anything with this iPad. Um, with this agent app that you'll see on that AirWatch iPad, you can actually sign in with your employee number and password here, and it will unlock all the restrictions. So I'm going to enter my employee number and password off screen here just because I don't like typing in my password on a recorded video, and I've done that before, and it was not fun, and I did get in a lot of trouble for it. Okay, so I got my employee number and password plugged in there. Anyone can any TDSB staff member can put in their employee number and password in here. A student can try to put in their student number and password in here, but it won't do anything. But you as a TDSB staff member, even the caretaker can pick it up and put in their employee number and password in here and tap log in. And what will happen is all the restrictions will magically vanish from the device. So it says success and allow. So now I'm signed in. I know that because there's actually a log out button there. But what will happen now that I'm logged into this AirWatch agent, let me see how am I get this in frame. There we go. And I press the home button. There's my App Store. So all the restrictions that were on this iPad are now removed temporarily. So I can actually now go into the App Store and I can go in and add an app the old-fashioned way if I wanted to. These are all paid. I could download this thing and sign in with an Apple ID. Everything that I couldn't do with the iPad prior, I can now do just by unlocking the iPad with the AirWatch Agent app. So consider your AirWatch iPad to have two modes, student mode and teacher mode. In student mode, no app store, you can't put a passcode on the device, you can't muck around with it too much. If you ever need to circumvent those restrictions, you can put it into teacher mode by signing into the AirWatch agent, that blue shield there. And then you'll see that the App Store will appear. And actually even all the settings will appear now. I can actually even put a passcode on this device now that I wasn't able to do before. I can now sign in with my iCloud account. I can now sign in with the iTunes and App Store. So every limitation has now been taken off this iPad by signing into the AirWatch agent. So if you're ever frustrated with AirWatch and wondering what's going on, that's one thing you can do is sign into the AirWatch agent. Just of course, sorry? 8-hour limit. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, yeah, that's good to know. So let's say you wanted to give this back to a student. Obviously, you wouldn't want to leave it in this state where they could, mess around with it and start downloading apps again. You would go into the agent app again, and as you saw earlier, there was a log out button there. And if we tap log out and we hit yes, and it logs out, we'll see everything will disappear. Continue. And the App Store is gone. Oops, sorry, that went too fast. App Store is gone again. If I go into settings, passcode's gone again. yada yada yada. So I've effectively locked it down again. Now, if you forgot to sign out, it will automatically sign them out after 8 hours. I wish it was a little bit shorter than that, but 8 hours is the turnaround time for that thing to sign out. So that's really the two key features of sorry the I guess the key differences between a non TDSB sorry a non AirWatch iPad and a regular iPad is, as you saw, that it got all these apps that I've actually pre-configured. I got Google Chrome, Sheets, Maps, Classroom, Sheets, or I said Sheets, Keep, Docs, and Drive. I got all that without actually ever going into the App Store, looking up the app, and downloading it. And you can imagine with maybe one or two devices, that's not a problem. But if you got like 30, 40, 50 iPads in your school, some schools even have 300 iPads in their school. That becomes a management nightmare. So with these apps that I've pre-configured to come in here on the AirWatch, it automatically push them down with not having to pick up a single iPad, and that's something that that will that we're actually going to we cover in the AirWatch webinar on how to actually set this part up so that it is this streamlined and it is this easy. So that's all done in a separate component with the actual AirWatch web console. I guess I could show you the AirWatch web console just so you can get an idea of what the management side of it looks like. But I just wanted to really highlight the two options of how to get started with AirWatch is to, choose whether you want to do your IT assisted enrollment, which is we'll send somebody out on site. Again, it could take anywhere from a month to 2 months. Or if you guys feel comfortable actually going into settings and then general and then reset. Now it doesn't say it here because the iPad's locked down in student mode. But then you hit erase all contents and settings, and then the iPad wipes, and then you walk through the setup, and then that's basically putting the iPad in AirWatch. So if you feel comfortable doing that, I would recommend doing the self-enrollment option. So those are really the two options that you guys can go forward with, and those are the two different iPads that you have. Sorry, catalog. Oh yeah, sorry. That's another feature I didn't really show. Sorry. There's just so many. If I go look here on this iPad, next to the Agent app is also the catalog. So I don't know if you can see it. So with AirWatch, you actually have two ways of deploying an app. As you saw when I wiped this thing and brought it in, it got all these different apps automatically, right? But you can actually even offer a catalog. So you can put apps to be on demand or optional for the users. So if I go into the catalog, it'll show me all the different apps that I've made available for somebody to choose to deploy themselves. Now in this case, the way I had it set up, I didn't really put too many in here. So the ones that are in the catalog are already installed automatically. But there is one extra one that I have in here that's on demand, or sorry, that's an option to install in the catalog, and that's this Epic app here. So I can hit the install button, and what should happen. Oh, you know what? This one I set up so that it throws that error message. Yeah, okay. So because we do the webinars, we like to show some different things that go wrong in configurations, and I set this one up to actually generate this error message because it was like an oversight thing that kind of happens when you're messing with it. But so that's actually a bad example. I wish I had set that up prior, then I would have put one in here. But the idea is pretty simple. Is that basically if you had another app in here like Epic and I hit the install button and install, it would actually install it on the iPad. It's not going to do it with this one because I actually have it intentionally not to do it for the sole purpose of demonstrating on the webinars. But that is something that you could do is have the optional apps. So you kind of give them a catalog of different apps that they can use. I'm just going to switch back here. So, as far as actually getting to the AirWatch web console, so that was all on like the device side, right? So you can see that the iPads are all appearing. They all get the apps that we've pre-configured for them. We offer the catalog so that they can have on-demand apps restrictions. That's the device side, right? I just want to give you guys a quick show and tell of the actual AirWatch console. So on the the desktop of any TDSB computer, you'll have your school's shared folder. Mine says LAS Test School. That's the name of my fake school here. Yours will actually say your school name. If you launch your school folder, you'll see that you have all your different apps in here, LAS and all that. But AirWatch has actually been put into the shared folder of all the schools. So you guys should be able to access the AirWatch web console through the desktop shortcut. Now, here's where you won't be able to get past, is it's going to ask you to log in. You will not be able to log in right now, most likely. I mean, unless you're a principal, you can log in. But basically, your principal has to add you in to be an administrator using the LAS system in order for you to have access to AirWatch. So basically, your principal would come into LAS, they would find you on a list, and then add you to the AirWatch group, and then you'll be able to log in to. Oops, sorry. Then you would be able to log into the AirWatch system here. But I'm going to log in now just so I can show you what it is that it looks like. Now, my test school here isn't very impressive because I only have, I think, 3 devices or something like that in here. But I can probably even show you some other schools and how many they have. Come on. So one thing actually to note is that AirWatch is it's not hosted here, so we don't have a server in the TDSB perimeter that's hosting AirWatch. It's actually a cloud service application, so it's out on the internet. So basically, anywhere from the web, you should be able to access the AirWatch web console, assuming you have a good network connection. I might actually be bogging down my network connection with this stream, so wonder if that's got something to do with it. There we go. Okay, finally. All right, so again, you can try to log in, but I highly doubt you'll be able to get in. I don't expect you guys to log in. Again, I'm not here to show you how to work with it right now. What I want to do is I want you guys to see from a high level perspective of how this whole thing works, and to see the features and to see how it works on the iPads. But I've managed to log into the AirWatch web console, and here's what we see from the actual web perspective, right? So this is where we actually do the actual management of the iPads. So, you got your iPad with all your AirWatch stuff on it, and then we manage it from this web console. So all the magic actually happens here in the web console. It just shows here that I have 3 devices. Again, nothing special. It's the 3 iPads that I have next to me. If I go into this section here called List View, it'll actually show me a breakdown of all the different iPads that I have here in my school. It'll have like their name, and it'll have the model number of the iPad over here, and the version number of what version of iOS it's running. And you can actually do a bunch of pretty cool stuff here within AirWatch. So let me just show you. I'll show you some cool things here. One is the location. So let's say I actually physically can't find this iPad. What you would do is you would first make sure that on all your iPads you turn on location settings, which is under privacy, and then location services at the top. So unfortunately, you have to manually set this on all your iPads. There is no way to force an iPad to have location services on, even with AirWatch, unfortunately. So you actually have to go into settings, privacy, and then location services. And now this iPad has location services turned on. Now, let's say hypothetically I lose this iPad. From the AirWatch web console, I'm hoping it already get the location data. I think it's this one here. Yeah, it's probably this one. I'm just going to query it for some data. So this is the iPad here. It's got a long gobbledygook name. Ignore that. But basically, let's pretend that I've now lost this iPad. I can actually go into this location tab here, and it'll show me the last location that it reported being in for this iPad. And as you can see, we even get a map. So right here, this is a Etobicoke 1 Civic Center, so that's where we're at right now. And this iPad has reported to AirWatch the location of the iPad. So you can imagine if you lose something, you can track it down. We actually had a high school where they had lost, I think, like 4 or 5 different iPads, and they had location services turned on, I think, on a few of them. And when they went to the location tab, it was actually already across the globe. I think it was like in India or something like that. Somebody had already so far as trafficked it all the way down there. But as far as being accountable, hopefully if it hasn't left the country, this can give you a better perspective of what's going on with your iPad. Of course, there's a whole process involved with tracking down iPads. We don't, encourage any vigilante justice, but that is a feature of AirWatch, is that you can see the location of the iPad in the event that you lose it. A more friendly way of tracking down a device, though, rather than getting on a map and going to hunt it down, is there's actually a feature in AirWatch called Lost Mode, and I'll show you that here. So if I go to More Actions and let's go there's this thing called Enable Lost Mode. So let's say I can't find this iPad, but I know it's somewhere in the school, and I know somebody's going to pick it up, and I want them to return it to me. I can actually put a message on this device and say, "Hey, this iPad is lost. Please return to Mr. Silva." And then I can provide a phone number for them to contact me if they find it. And then I can send that to the iPad. So now I want to find this iPad. And what's actually going to happen is if I go back over to the iPad, let me toggle over here. Where's my mouse? Oh, there it is. Okay. Boom. So if I pick up this iPad now, you can see here it says lost iPad. Hey, this iPad is lost. Please return to Mr. Silva. That's just what I put on the screen. So this iPad effectively is actually useless. You can't, if I press the home button, it doesn't do anything. If I swipe the screen, nothing happens. The volume buttons don't do anything. The power button just kind of locks the screen. But I actually cannot use this iPad. So it kind of keeps it, keeps it from being sold or anything like that, or having any initiative to go out and try to make money off this iPad. But basically, I've effectively locked down this iPad, and I have a contact number there for somebody to contact me, so that they would pick it up, and then they would see that, and they would go, "Oh, Mr. Silva's lost this. I need to return this to him," and they give me a call. And then once you get that iPad back, you can of course turn it back off. So I have to refresh the screen, of course. I'm going to do that, and I'll do disable lost mode. There we go. So now if I go back to that iPad, somebody's given me the iPad back. I've now disabled lost mode. It says the iPad's been located, and I can press the home button, or sorry, rather the continue button down here, and my iPad is free to use again. So that's lost mode. There's actually a whack load of things you can do in here. I could reboot the device. So let's say I want to restart it remotely. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. You could probably just do it on the iPad itself. But if you wanted to reboot it, you could reboot it from here. If you had a passcode on the device, you could clear it. As you saw, though, by default, you can't put a passcode on the AirWatch iPads unless you sign in with your employee number and password. But if you did decide to put a passcode on there, you could clear it from here. One of the more common things is a device wipe. So say there's something really weird going on with my iPad. I'm not going to wipe this one, actually, just because I want to continue using it. I'm going to wipe this guy here. So I have another iPad here. This is actually the one that was acting funny. So this is a good... Oh, well, no, it's not. That's a bad example. So I got another one here. It actually looks similar to the other one. But I can, from the AirWatch web console, wipe this iPad. Say it's acting really funny. It's not behaving correctly. I can go to this device wipe feature. It'll just ask me to put in a little PIN code that I created, which is totally fine. Just wants to make sure that I didn't do it accidentally. And if I toggle back to that iPad, it should start wiping. And there it goes. So it's basically factory resetting the iPad if it's acting funny. Now, because, I have this device in AirWatch, I'm not too concerned about wiping devices so much anymore. A wipe is actually not so dramatic because when it comes back to life and I put it back into AirWatch, it's going to get all those apps that I had pre-configured. There's really not a lot for me to do as far as getting this iPad back to life other than the initial setup. So as you can see, there's all those different actions you can take on the iPad, but you can see a list of your devices or a list of your iPads in your school. I only have 3 here, but some other schools have as many as like 300. You can deploy different apps to the iPad. So if I go to apps and books here, I can see a list of all the apps that I have. So as you saw earlier, there was that Epic app. Say for example, these are all the Google apps that I have on the iPad. Let's say I now want Scratch Junior to appear on all my iPads. If I want to put this on all my iPads, I'll show you how quick this is. I go to Add Assignment. Again, don't worry about what I'm doing here. This is all part of the AirWatch webinar training. I'm more trying to demonstrate the speed of this. So let's say I want Scratch Junior to be on I want it on all my iPads. 20 licenses. Auto. Boom. So now I have Scratch Junior as one of the apps that will appear on all my iPads. Let's take another one. Let's say Seesaw. I want Seesaw on all my iPads. Boom. Click that. Yeah, actually, and I'll even do one as on. I'll make Twitter on demand. That'll be a good option. I tried to show you earlier the catalog where I make the app optional. See, this is a bad demo now that the screen is loading, taking so long to load. It's usually not this slow. I think it's because I'm streaming. Oh yeah, it's the PA day. That's right. Everyone's chewing up our network. I'm gonna leave that one. So, oh, was I gonna do Seesaw? Yeah, okay, I'll do Seesaw. Ah, whatever. Okay. So say I want Seesaw to appear on all my iPads. As you can see, I'm really quick at this now, so that's why I probably make it look a little bit easier than it is. But all the teachers I've spoken with that have been using it for a while are pretty much the same speed as I am as far as getting these apps deployed here, if not faster. So if I do my iPads all, give it 20 licenses, even though there's only one, hit save, save and publish, publish. So I've added 2 new apps to appear on all my iPads. I added Scratch Junior and I added Seesaw. Those are by default going to go on all my iPads. And I'm going to make Twitter an optional app. I don't want everybody to have Twitter on their iPads, but if you need to have Twitter on your iPad, I'm going to allow it. So I'm going to give this I'm going to basically put Twitter on there on all the iPads, but rather than forcing it on all the iPads, I'm going to make it optional. So you can see here the assignment type shows auto. Auto means it's going to force it on there. It's going to automatically deploy it. On demand makes it a optional app. So that if you wish to install it, you can definitely do that through the catalog. Okay. So I've now added 2 more apps to my roster of apps that will appear on all my iPads, and I added 1 optional app. So actually, let's do the enrollment again just to show you how simple this whole thing works. So I wiped this iPad, as you saw in the AirWatch console. It's time to put it back in AirWatch. You can either say that this is an iPad that's been wiped, or maybe this is a brand new iPad that you just got. You're going to see this initial setup screen if you just bought it. If you wiped it, you're going to see this initial setup screen as well. Again, we just walked through the setup. Where are we from? Canada, English, Canada. Okay, we do the Wi-Fi. Choose a Wi-Fi network, TDSB media devices. Again, if TDSB media devices doesn't work, fingers crossed, we can always use TDSB-Wi-Fi. Okay, there we go. It says may take a few minutes to activate your iPad. The next screen is where the magic happens. Like I said, it'll ask you for that Trillium number that you guys have, your 4-digit school Trillium number. Here we go. Remote management. Hit next. And the username, 9999. Yours may be different, but mine's for my fake school here, it's 9999. For both the username and the password, I put that 4-digit Trillium number in. Click next. That magical part is now done. It now knows that, oh, this is your school's iPad, and your school has to have all these apps on it. And then it's going to get to work once we blow through this this setup here. So now it's back in its vanilla state, and then it's going to start, getting all its apps again. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. One moment. Oh, okay. No, I don't want to keep them too long. Oh, so now you can see that it's getting, there you go. So there's Scratch Junior. I just put that one on there, right? So I just forced that as a new app to appear there. So that was the automatic deployment. As you saw, it took me about 3 minutes to put that app into AirWatch in a way that all the iPads will get it. Now, of course, you're probably saying, well, yeah, you only got one iPad. It'll actually happen on the next one as well. So because I said that has to go on all iPads, this one's probably going to get Scratch Junior. Oh, it already has it right there, Scratch Junior. So this one's got it. The Seesaw app should be making its way. Seesaw is appearing on here. It should eventually make its way over to here if I wake up the wireless on this guy. Yeah, Seesaw's taking its sweet time on this guy. But this one's already getting Seesaw installed in the top right-hand corner there. And as I showed you, I also put Twitter on there, but I didn't force Twitter on here. So Twitter's not being deployed to any of these iPads automatically. But what I did do is I made Twitter an optional app. So if I go into the catalog, I should see now that Twitter is there with a gray install button. And if I tap install and install, of course, never works the first time. Install, install, install. Okay, says it's processing. Oh, come on. Oh, ooh. It's always nerve-wracking when you're trying to show somebody something. It's like, oh, it works all the time, and then it doesn't work. So Twitter's installing on there. And again, it wasn't forced on there. I gave the person holding the iPad the ability to install that app. So that was, deploying an app. As you saw, that was pretty quick as far as with all the different apps that I have here. The apps all get in here through the app request process. So basically, there's a form that you fill out when you basically say, I want these apps to be available to work with in AirWatch. You submit that form, and then the apps will appear here in AirWatch. So it's not every app. I don't have access to the full app store here, right? I can't just search any app that I want. Like, let's say I wanted Angry Birds, right? Angry Birds isn't here because I didn't request Angry Birds. You have to submit the app request form. And that app request form is basically on serviceit.tdsb.on.ca. That's a mouthful. You know what? I shouldn't be telling people to type in addresses. That's too much. It's actually the Service IT link is in your school shared folder. So you'll see there's a link there for Service IT. And if you double click Service IT, it'll take you to our page here. Of course, very slow. And I believe in the banner here, it should say school upgrade, mobile device management. Here we go. So this is our little page for AirWatch. If you click Learn More, it'll take you to the AirWatch page. So you can actually come in here now, and you can watch. I'm hoping I've given you guys a pretty good introduction and understanding of how this product works. But basically, this is like our everything AirWatch page for now. And on here shows like an FAQ. There's different training materials. You can watch our previous AirWatch webinars where we actually dive in and show all the different details of how how to actually get through the management interface and deploy all those apps. You saw I did it really quickly, but we do offer training. So once you guys sign up into AirWatch, regardless of whether you choose IT Assist or self-enrollment, just let us know what you guys are going to go with. If you want field services to go there, let us know. If you guys are going to do it yourself, let us know. And we will send you a link for the AirWatch webinar so that you guys can go in and watch that. You can even watch the previous ones. You don't even have to wait for the link to come out. We have all of the webinars previously posted on our YouTube channel here. So you can actually go back in and watch those previous webinars and skip through the things that you think and if you have to watch it because some of them are upwards of like an hour and a half and time constraints and whatnot. But why I wanted to show you this page in the first place, right? The app request form here. This is where you would basically fill out your app request form and where we basically put in all the apps for AirWatch. So basically all those apps that you saw here, Angry Birds wasn't there. Let me put in my number again. So all these apps, they got here by submitting the app request form. So I submitted this form and basically they put them in AirWatch. So if they're free apps, it doesn't take that long. They'll probably be in there within 1 or 2 business days. For paid apps, it can be a little bit longer. It can be upwards of 15 business days, which basically goes through teaching and learning. So if you submit the app request form for a paid app, it could take a little bit more time than if you chose a free app to appear in AirWatch. What other thing do I want to cover here? So the managing of your iPads, so the actual naming. What I would recommend though, so now that you guys have a general idea of how this works and how we have all our iPads here showing in AirWatch, what I would recommend before you get started is do a little bit of house cleaning as far as the iPads go. One thing you'll want to do is first and foremost is make sure that you guys actually have a sort of a physical labeling system for your iPads. So, we at the client service desk, we have all of our iPads stickered on the back. So this is CSD iPad iOS 11 number 1. And the reason that we want a physical labeling is so that when we come back to the virtual world here of AirWatch, it'll make more sense, right? So this iPad in the physical world is called CSD iPad iOS 11 number 1. Um, I will actually want to name that iPad that physical label so that when I'm looking at this, it makes sense instead of just whatever the heck that is. This says iPad and then a bunch of goggly goop, right? I'm going to call this CSD iPad iOS, whoever chose this name, 11 number 1. Okay. Now, you know what? We're going to call this grade 1 iPad just for our elementary folk out there. Grade 1 iPad number, let's pretend we have 10, and this is iPad number 6. So I've called this, grade 1 iPad number 6. So now when I'm looking at my list in AirWatch, I can actually see grade 1 iPad number 6 so that when I'm looking at it in the physical world, it makes more sense. But I'll just cover that. Pretend that's grade iPad number 6. This iPad is grade 6, or sorry, grade 1 iPad number 6. So if you don't already have your iPads labeled, I would recommend that you do physically label them, because then when it comes time to actually start working with them in AirWatch, it'll be a lot easier for you guys to go, oh, I know that iPad. I know where that is. And it'll also give you more granular control. So what I did here is I just said I want these apps to appear on all my iPads. That's fine. You can just say, you know what, these are the apps and I want all my iPads to have them. But if you want to get a little bit more granular with your control, you can actually in AirWatch create groups. So I actually already have a bunch set up here for the sake of demonstration. I've created groups for grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. So say for example, I don't want my grade 1 iPads to have the same apps that my grade 6 iPads have. Maybe I got some different apps on there that don't really apply to the older grades. I could go as far as to actually put those apps so that they only go on the grade 1 iPads, right? And then the grade 6 apps have their own iPad apps as well. And you can imagine even if you have like a paid app. So say for example, you have what's an expensive one? Prolo Quo to Go. Prolo Quo to Go is a very expensive app. And if you guys have paid for it, you'll probably only have like a few handful of licenses. So rather than saying I want Prolo Quo to Go on all my iPads, which if you have over let's say you have 50 iPads, but you only have 10 licenses for Prolo Quo to Go, you don't want first come first serve to grab that app. You want specific iPads to have that app because you've probably already chosen that you want those iPads to have that app for that classroom. So if you physically label your iPads, when they come into the AirWatch environment, it'll be much easier to manage them. So now that I have that iPad, for example, as a grade 1 iPad, I can now, for example, take this iPad here. Let's see if I can find it. Grade 1 iPad number 6. Boom, boom. So I've now put that grade 1 iPad into the grade 1 iPads group. And now say, for example, I have an app that I only want the grade 1 iPads to have, like we'll say Starfall. Save and assign. And I'll do that. And add assignment by grade 1 iPad. So only my grade 1 iPads are going to get this app. So now I have, I have some division of iPads here. Let me toggle back. Boom. Okay. So one of them is a grade 1 iPad and one of them is not. And unfortunately, I don't know which one it is. Oh, wait. I can check the name. General about grade 1 iPad. Okay, so this is the grade 1 iPad. And this one is not. So this one on the right, oh, they don't both fit in the screen. Okay. This one on the right will get the Starfall app eventually, of course. Everything takes time with AirWatch. Come on. I'm just going to refresh. Sometimes when you go on the internet with the iPads, it like wakes them up. Oh. Well. So if I go in the catalog, you can see that the Starfall app is there. but I chose for it to automatically deploy. One thing I will say about AirWatch is that it is all very network dependent. So sometimes it's a little crummy when I try to show how it works on the webinar, for example, and then the app doesn't deploy right away. Unfortunately, it is very network dependent. So for example, you saw that I just deployed that app to that iPad, but it hasn't made its way over there yet. That could be something as simple as, maybe our network's running a little bit slow. So like, for example, because it is a PD day, we have a lot of users in our building that are probably on the Wi-Fi, and it could be consuming a lot of bandwidth. So that might be why it's not deploying over there. But eventually it should make its way over there. But I won't keep you guys on the edge of your seat. But that the idea I'm trying to convey here really is that you want to physically label your iPads so that when you do have them in AirWatch, you'll be able to set them up so that they reflect what you have in the real world, and you can name them so that how you guys have it in the real world. So that was one piece as far as managing them goes. I think with that, because again, this was just a high-level overview. I don't want to go into the details of step by step how to do everything, because that is done on our AirWatch webinar, which again you can watch from our YouTube channel, or if you're taking the afternoon session, you can see some more there. But with that, oh, actually, sorry, let me just show you. Boom, Starfall's on there. Haha, see, I'm not a liar. And Starfall is not on this one. Sorry, just wanted to brag about that. There you go. Cool. With that, I think that's the gist of what I wanted to cover for as far as getting started in AirWatch goes. So with that, does anyone have any questions or anything that you would like me to go into more detail about? Just give you guys a moment to. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. If something wasn't clear, again, just let me know. I'll go into more detail. I'll make sure it makes more sense. So, um, but I hope right now you guys understand that this AirWatch product is what we're going to be using to manage all our iPads. And unfortunately, or fortunately, really depends on how you look at it, it's not optional. So um, this is a board-wide deployment. Your iPads are automatically forced into AirWatch when you get new ones. Your existing ones, if you wipe them, they will automatically go into AirWatch as well. There's really no option here. They have to go into AirWatch. So um, if you have any questions as far as getting started goes, like I said, you can contact us, or heck, you can even let us know right now in the chat if you guys want to do self-enrollment or IT assist. Just type it out in the chat, and then we'll get that ticket started for you guys. We'll get that rolling. Um, okay, good. No questions. No questions at all? Come on. All right. Well, what I'll do is that if you guys want to leave now, feel free to go now. And I thank you very much for attending the webinar. If you have any feedback, please send us an email at the client service desk, letting us know how you thought this went, or if there's more you'd like to know, or if you guys like the idea of these webinars, if you want more, want less, it's up to you, right? Let us know at the client service desk how if you enjoyed this, or if you have any ideas of what we should be covering going forward. Okay, cool. Somebody's going to do self-enrollment. So yeah, feel free to let us know how we did. Thank you very much for attending. If you need to leave now, go ahead. I'm going to stick around in the actual chat just to see if any questions come up. Highly doubted. And eventually, as people drop off, I'll assume at that point that there's no questions. But thank you guys again very much for attending. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your day and afternoon and PD day. Take care. Yes, Grace, the webinar is recorded, actually. So if you you can actually use the same link. Oh yeah, so here, let me show you. I'm gonna bring this onto the screen here. So this is what I was watching you guys on the entire time. So this same link up here that you were watching the webinar on, if you just copy it, where is it? Like you have a copy of the link. This same link is the same one you're gonna use. As soon as I stop the recording, this same link becomes the link that you can rewatch it on. If the iPads need a sign-in, I will need IT services. Oh, you guys have you have 24. Okay, so if what I would say, I think you're referring to the Apple ID. Is that what you mean by the sign-in? Yeah. So if you get to an iPad and you go into settings and then you try to sign out of it, and it asks you for an Apple ID or you don't recognize the Apple ID, like I said, basically you have to let us know that iPad serial number. So if you go into settings and then general and then about, the serial number is listed right there. And if you give us that serial number, we can then prove it to Apple that we own it. Because basically we can, oh geez, I just dropped one. Oh no. We can, if we get that serial number and you let us know what that serial number is, we can log a ticket for you to have Apple basically release that from that Apple ID. Yeah, so how about, yeah, we'll just send him an email. And basically what they do is they just look it up in SAP, the purchase for that iPad, and we send them a copy. We send a ticket, rather a copy of that screenshot to Apple, and they have to release it because they won't release it until we send them all that information via email. I've actually walked this process before, so it can take upwards of like 2 to 3 business days for them to actually release it. So basically, once we get the serial number, we can log the ticket. Our guys will contact Apple, prove that we own it, and then within 2 to 3 business days, Apple releases it. Yeah. So if you have about 3 in that situation, that's totally understandable. Yeah. Or if you could know whose Apple ID it is, you could always track them down and ask them, "Hey, is this your Apple ID? Did you sign in? Do you know the password?" Yeah. Also, I guess one thing. Well, no sense saying it now. Oh yeah, if they retire, then definitely you're gonna need to contact Apple on that. Sometimes PD on the web. Oh, thank you, Michelin. You answered your burning questions. That's good. Ah, see, we thought ahead. Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate the feedback. Do all principals know the remote management username and password? Um, so Grace, it's your Trillium number. So Grace, what's your school name? Did you get that attendance? Because I can just look it up. So Central Etobicoke. Active Directory. Hopefully I have that installed. Okay. So let's you guys can see what's going on my screen here. Basically your school's Trillium number is 4 numbers long. So I'm gonna look up Central Etobicoke. Central Etobicoke High School. So your school Trillium number is 1035. Yeah, 1035. Central Etobicoke High School is 1035. So, in your case, Grace, if you were enrolling your device and then you got to that screen where it asks you for the Trillium number, you basically just put in 1035 for the username and 1035 for the password, and then what will happen is your iPad will appear in your school's AirWatch environment. I can actually I have some special access here, so I can actually dive into your environment. I'm just gonna switch around here. So if I go into schools, Central Etobicoke. So right now, Central Etobicoke has 14. So you guys actually already have 14 devices sitting in your AirWatch environment. See that? So if you put in 1035 for the username and password, you'll see that that iPad will appear in here. Now it'll probably come with a generic name, but you can rename your iPad um, both from here or you can rename it on the device itself. So you can see that Zuhal's iPad in here. Ba, 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 ba. No worries. You're welcome. Yeah. So once you do get that iPad, once you type in 1035, you can actually go on the iPad itself. Just go to Settings, General, and then About. And if you change the name of the iPad on the iPad, it'll then change it on the screen in AirWatch. So you'll see that your iPad will have a new name in here. So it'll be whatever you set on the iPad will appear here. Anytime. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, if you're still here, you shouldn't be. We're done. I'm gonna turn off the stream now. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the client service desk, 416-395-4357. We are option 5. Thank you very much for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.